Hey, cabin crew and listeners. I'm your daring host, Farrah of the Conversation Cabin podcast, and we welcome you to episode 2 of the Virginia City Chronicles. Well, of course, the Paranormal Project Tuesday Top Terror, Virginia City Chronicles, episode 2, which will be presented by none other than Amanda from One Nothing Podcast. Her subject tonight will be the Gold Hill Hotel. Ooh, can't wait. Now, if you missed 2 weeks ago, 2 Tuesdays ago, that would have been, Vicky from Mrs. Spooky Obsessed podcast did her subject, which was the Silver Queen Hotel. And she did, as I told her a million times, and all of you a million times, she did a phenomenal job. So if you did not get to listen to that live or get a chance yet to go on to the Conversation Cabin podcast and listen, please do go there after tonight or whenever you have time. But first of all, I just kind of wanted to go into a little bit of history about Virginia City, because I think that's important since we are going to be talking about the most infamous buildings, because there's a few other buildings too that are just as important, maybe not as infamous and haunted as the ones that we're going to cover in our subjects, but still an important part of history in Virginia City. So let's take you there. Virginia City was founded in 1859 after a significant silver deposit was discovered in the area. The town was named after the Virginia Mining Company, which was one of the first companies to invest in silver mines. The town grew very quickly, and by 1863, it had become the most populous city in Nevada, with a population of over 15,000 people. Virginia City was known for its wealth, and it was often referred to as the Queen of the Comstock. One of the most famous buildings in Virginia City is the Fourth Ward School. This building was constructed in 1876 and was one of the most advanced schools in the West at the time. The school was built with a unique design that featured a central tower that allowed natural light to enter the classrooms. The Fourth Ward School operated until 1936, and it has since been converted into a museum that showcases the history of Virginia City. Another famous building in the city is the Bucket of Blood Saloon. Ooh, what a creepy name. This saloon was built in 1876 and was a popular gathering place for miners and other residents of Virginia City. The saloon's name comes from a fight that broke out inside, which resulted in blood being spilled on the floor. The saloon has since become a popular tourist attraction and is known for its historic ambiance. Virginia City has a reputation for being one of the most haunted cities in the United States. There are numerous stories of ghosts and paranormal activity throughout the town. One of the most famous haunted buildings in Virginia City, as we covered 2 weeks ago, the Silver Queen Hotel, which was again built in 1876 and has been the site of numerous ghost sightings over the years. Guests have reported seeing the ghost of a woman in a red dress wandering the halls of the hotel. And remember, if you were here, that ghost, I believe her name is Rosie. And at the end of that episode 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how there might be a Rosie in the Gold Hill Hotel as well. So we're wondering if that's the same Rosie, which I'm sure Amanda will let us know tonight if there's some connection. The following quote from the Reno Gazette Journal in 1994 describes the unique history and charm of Virginia City. Quote, Virginia City is a place where the past is present. It's a place where the buildings are old, but the spirits that inhabit them are even older. It's a place where you can walk down the street and feel like you've stepped back in time. In conclusion, Virginia City, Nevada played a significant role in the development of the American West during the mid 19th century. The town's wealth and prosperity were built on the silver mines that were discovered in the area. Today, Virginia City is a popular tourist destination that offers visitors a glimpse into the past. Its historic buildings, such as the Fourth Ward School and the Bucket of Blood Saloon, the Silver Queen Hotel, and more, are reminders of the town's rich history and, of course, its reputation as one of the most haunted city in the United States only adds to its charm and intrigue. Now, listeners, this episode, our expert researcher, Amanda, from the One Nothing podcast, will take us on a journey through the history of the Gold Hill Hotel in Virginia City, Nevada. This hotel played a significant role in the city's past and has a reputation for being one of the most haunted places in the area. Amanda has conducted extensive research on the hotel's history and the paranormal activity that is said to occur there. So hold your hats, cabin crew, and I present to you Amanda, my friend and fellow podcaster of the One Nothing podcast. How are you doing this evening, Amanda?
I am doing great, Farrah. I am so excited to share everything that I learned about this just phenomenal location. And I feel like you just introduced it the best way possible. And I'm so ready to get into this.
Well, I'm ready to hear what you came up with. Take it away, Amanda. And listeners in the chat that did use the link, because if you use the link, you can actually interact with us. Other than that, you'll just go into a separate room somewhere and you won't be able to interact. So go to our respective Instagrams, Amanda, Vicky from Mrs. Spooky Obsessed, mine on the story, and I'm trying to post it here as Amanda gets started. I'm going to post on my general feed as well. So if you want to listen, you can join the link, come in, chat with us, and at the end, we'll take some questions as well. All right, Amanda, take it away.
All right. So I was given the honor of looking into the Gold Hill Hotel, as you said. And boy, the more I looked into this hotel, the more my mind just wrapped around it. And it just seems like there's so much going on here that it was hard to compile everything. But I do want to talk a little bit about the history behind it, some of the things that it's seen. And then we'll talk about some of the things that people have experienced with this, because I did find a lot with all of those aspects. So the Gold Hill Hotel, from what I could find, is the oldest known hotel in all of Nevada. It sits just on the outskirts of Virginia City. Right now it has a 2-story peeling brick look, white railings on the second floor. It's real charming and cute, and just driving past it, you'd probably not think much of it. The oldest part of the hotel dates back to the early 1860s, and it's actually still in use to this day, more so now as a lobby and like a bar, but they still do use parts of the hotel that are from the original structure. The additions to the house have been made throughout time. The first one probably around 1980 or so, but it's just gotten larger and better with the business that has come through to help support it. Behind the hotel, on the property that it sits within view of the magnificent buildings and the old cabin and headframe from the Crown Point mine. Also the Yellow Jacket mine, and we'll talk about that relevance in a little bit. In its best days, it boasted the name the Ricin House. It's had many names throughout time, but that seems to have been the first. It did oversee the area's explosion of population that took place over a couple years. In 1862, the house was put to the ultimate test because rising floodwaters due to an unprecedented rainfall, and then that mixed with melting snow from the mountains, it did threaten most of North California and Nevada. So it did kind of get caught up in the flood, and a good part of the house did suffer some structural damage, but the main part of the building remained firm. And that quote was actually a headline on the Alta California newspaper on January 27th of 1862, because even at that time, the house was renowned for being just kind of an interesting little place. It was sold to a man named Horace Vesey in 1862, and thus it became the Vesey House. It was quickly repaired to its former glory, and it did continue to attract countless guests. The hotel did become somewhat of like an important part of the thriving metropolis of Gold Hill, such it was quoted. So it did see, as the population of that small mining town continued to grow throughout the years, a lot of the people were attracted, almost like called to the hotel. And through my research, I actually found that Mark Twain was rumored to have stayed at the hotel on multiple occasions.
Yep, I saw that. That's awesome. You know, they still have his writing desk there somewhere in Virginia City. I think it might be at the Washoe Club, I'm thinking. They have his writing desk there that he used when he was in Virginia City.
That is so wild. Yeah, my mind blew about that, and just so many people who said that they just felt like a calling or like a pull that they couldn't explain. And it was like a place where a lot of people had really fun, good times, and people lived a good chunk of their lives through this house. Once it was repaired, unfortunately, it did continue to see some more pretty heinous things. It bared witness to a lot of historical events in his time. The first being like miner strikes. The miners were trying to compete for, better, like a unionize almost. And they would hold a lot of strikes and assemblies to organize. And they also saw a lot of shooting of historical figures. In particular, in August of 1864, it did see a miners' strike as they assembled in front of the house. And then in 1873, James Murray was shot by Jabez Spencer. So it has seen some death even in the early years of its standing. Now, it also witnessed the Gold Hill area population rise from a couple hundred, which is when the house was first erected, to about 25,000 by 1875. So that's a pretty rapid growth in population for that area. A string of economical highs and lows, though, did see many who called Gold Hill home leave. Sadly, there was just not enough demand to supply. There was more areas coming up with the same kind of, minerals, and the once booming town did start to kind of fall, and people did leave in droves, leaving Gold Hill pretty much a ghost town. In fact, by 1930, the population was back to like a couple hundred people.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And the people that did stay behind were mainly miners who have spent their whole lives there, who had heritage there, like their parents and grandparents and such had grown up as miners in Gold Hill. But they stayed knowing that they may not be able to make things work, and that, they could become very severely impoverished. And just like that, with that decision, Gold Hill had fallen. And people who did stay actually salvaged wood from the remaining structures just to start fires so they could like survive through cold nights. Like it got really, really impoverished, and really like the number of people fell quite a bit. The only thing that was left after the end of this was just a few private residences, and everything else that was left was just being torn to shreds by people who were just basically trying to survive.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
Yeah, and it was quoted as like being like a depression for that area. Like a lot
I
of
was
people,
just about to say that word. Yep.
yeah, a lot of
Well, I
people
can
did
see
lose
that.
their lives just because they were, lost everything, and they went from having everything to having nothing. And the people who didn't move out early, there's not a lot of options for them in terms of trying to find housing now that everything nearby is all picked off by the people who used to live there. So it was really traumatic and hard for the people who stayed behind.
Wow, and look how far it came. So, I mean, they definitely were resilient people that came in that town after another group got in there, of course, and like rebuilt it.
Absolutely. And then in the 1950s, the population dropped all the way down to about 82 people, and there wasn't even a post office anymore in Gold Hill. That's how small and desolate the population was. In 1958, however, the house with a variety of historical names got another name because Fred and Dorothy Inmore purchased the property, and they named it the Gold Hill Hotel / bar / saloon. They've kind of bounced between names with all three of those. So, I did kind of look through some review websites to see, because obviously the building is still in operation to this day. So I did want to go through and see what some of the experiences that people have had. And a lot it kind of almost made me chuckle. A lot of the reviews are complaining about things that are very likely paranormal, but the people don't realize they're paranormal. There was a lot of complaints about electrical malfunctions. There was a lot of complaints about people thinking people were coming in their rooms at night. So just kind of ironic that a lot of people, stayed in a hotel that's known to have paranormal activity, and then they assume that these things are not paranormal.
Which they are. Enough people have visited that place to know.
Absolutely. And so some other reported things that were experienced were obviously like vastly electrical malfunctionings, large black bugs that would accumulate in random parts of the hotel without any like reason. Some people felt like they were being touched, mainly women, which I know last time we were kind of talking about, these things kind of picking a gender to kind of go after. But men really didn't have too many negative experiences. Men were pretty well taken care of. Like men did still sometimes feel touches, but they were more like flirty in nature almost. And the women, it was more like they would yank their hair, they would feel like nips and stuff, like, painful kind of sensations.
So your hotel, people are experiencing the same thing as the Silver Queen, right?
Exactly.
Now, was the Gold Hill, so did that have a brothel-like area in it too then?
So I couldn't find evidence that it had a brothel area, but I found a lot of evidence about that being a place where prostitutes would bring men and spend the night there with them. So I don't know if there was maybe like a ring going on that I couldn't find, information about, but it definitely was like a hot spot where a lot of sex workers would bring their clientele there.
Okay.
And then I also found evidence, ironically, just like Vicky's segment, of a sex worker by the name of Rosie who died in a nearby hotel, which now I know is likely the Silver Queen, in the very early days of those buildings existing. And she's been seen a lot of times. A lot of people have caught her saying her name on EVP recordings. So it's really interesting that they're getting the same, like I found two different groups who investigated the hotel and they both caught EVPs, and it sounds like the same voice on both EVP.
Oh, wow. So do you think that there's a correlation then between the two, the Gold Hill and Silver Queen? Do you think it might be the same, Rosie, in your opinion?
I'm wondering if it might be, only because I looked up the distance and they're virtually right down the street from one another. So I'm wondering if there's something significant about that area. If maybe when she was alive, she roamed that strip like that. I don't know if, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I don't know if they necessarily had like areas that they serviced like nowadays. So maybe that was her stretch, and that was, that was just her going about her business. And maybe that's why she's kind of seen in both of those.
And back then, just from, movies that you have watched about the Wild West, there are a few girls that are like the best girls in the town,
Right.
where like the owners, if they had some other businessmen that were, entrepreneurs and had money, they would want them to go to the best girls. So that's probably maybe where Rosie fits in. Maybe she's one of those best girls that they had there. So she would fluctuate between I think that's very possible.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I was thinking that as well, just because so many of the things that Vicky was talking about that she read about in her hotel, and as soon as she said the name Rosie and that she said she was a sex worker, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's, I wanted to say something right then, but I don't want to give away hints, but I'm like, that's so crazy that we would both be able to find evidence of that name and that profession in a hotel that are right down the road from one another.
Right. And then the fact that you have paranormal groups that go to both the Gold Hill and their Silver Queen, and they're both getting, Rosie there. I mean, granted, there can always be more than one, but what's the possibility in a very small town like that?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so and there's just so much death. I mean, I wanted to give this like the full moment of what it requires because it's so deep. But one of the most tragic things that has happened to that area was that on April 7th of 1864, I'm sorry, 1869, my own pen writing, a fire started in the Yellow Jacket mine, which is right outside of basically the area where the hotel sits. And it was 800 feet down into the mine. And it was probably like a misplaced candle that someone had set there for light and knocked it over. But what it did was there was a network of mines underground, and the fire spread so quickly to all of the mines that were connected underground. 35 miners at least died. And to this day, it remains the worst mining disaster in like Nevada history. And a lot of the bodies that perished were never recovered because of how deep into the mine they passed.
Oh my God. You
There's
know what? There were
so
so
much
many
suffering.
mining accidents like that back in the day.
Yeah, it was really tragic. And they still have, like, it's like gated off, but they have the old structure standing. I forget what they call the wood that they put out front of the mine. But they still have that standing out front. And a lot of people got a lot of really bizarre EVPs that like sound like, I don't want to say screaming, but like it's creepy. There's some creepy sounds that they catch when they stand by that mine. Um, it's just very
But
bizarre that that happened in such close, proximity, and some other things. Now, these were the things that I couldn't super well find 100% proof of happening, but I wanted to mention them because I did find them throughout my research. So I found in 1880 there was a captain for the new Gold Hill Mining Company who was like transitioning the name from another company. His name was Joe Newman, and he wrote in his diary, "The fates are against me," after he stayed a couple nights in the hotel, and then he killed himself by explosion. And there's a lot of reports of like the kids, like there was some event going on where there was a lot of kids there, and kids were seeing apparitions of body parts like flying around and stuff, and like really disturbing stuff. So I couldn't find 100% evidence on like if that really happened. I tried to look for Joe Newman for that year and I couldn't find it, but I saw that in a couple places, which was really disturbing that they're seeing body part apparitions. um I don't know what to think about that, if I'm being honest.
that's, that's scary.
It
And,
is scary.
there's, I mean, it just even in history, not just in Virginia City, so many places where a haunting has actually led to someone killing themselves. So even though it's kind of crazy, it happens. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, and then I watched an interview of a paranormal investigation team that they spent the night in the hotel, and then they came up with some research from a lady who had like known some the previous owners of the hotel through family, and she told a story of this old miner and a young miner, and like the old miner was like an older guy, he's kind of seasoned, like good at his job. The younger miner, he had a wife and kids at home, he was pretty new at it. And while they were in the mine, somehow a piece of timber fell and it impaled the young miner, and he like slowly died because they couldn't get help down there to get him. Um, and then the kids said they would like see his father all the time. Like he would always be like, they would see apparitions of him.
Oh my Lord, that's
Yeah,
a tragic story
very
there.
tragic.
Oh,
Yeah.
could you imagine being impaled?
No, I just like, and then having to lay there and suffer because they can't get help to you because you're so deep into a mine. Like that's terrifying.
That is terrifying. Oh my God. Ugh.
And then finally in 1987, Bill and Carol Fain, they buy the Gold Hill Hotel and they added a kitchen, 8 rooms, a restaurant, kind of like, zhuzhed it up a little, made it more modern. And then I couldn't find substantiating evidence of this either, but apparently there was so much activity that they couldn't really be in the hotel by themselves and they couldn't afford to keep help constantly around the clock for the dwindled amount of visitors that came. So they sold the hotel in 2011 and they went off and retired with the money they made from it and sold it to Comstock Mining Company, who now owns the hotel. And they employ a manager, and the manager's not very kind. I tried to call. And then there's a lot of responses on like TripAdvisor was one that I like went down the rabbit hole looking at reviews, and a lot of people were listing things that were probably genuinely bad experience related. And the way he was like replying to them was not very kind and not very indicative of like a person who really knows how to run a business very well. So that's
Oh
just my own
wow,
opinion, not
really?
the opinion of anyone else. But it
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
came
I'm
down to
not
the
saying that that's right by any means, but we got to kind of take a step in his shoes for a moment. Do you know how many people go through there? And I mean, let's be honest, most of them are young YouTuber kids or just kids that are paranormal investigating.
That's true.
And they're probably annoying and screaming and yelling through the halls. Goodness, I've watched enough YouTube videos to know how they all act. So
Fed
he's
up.
probably at his wits end, but still I get what you're saying. I agree both ways. You still have to be professional. If you're burnout about it, then leave, just
Yeah,
walk
that's a
away.
good point. He
For
probably
sure.
does deal with a lot of stuff like that.
But then, like I said, he shouldn't he shouldn't be replying to people in a rude manner. But like I said, you still have to be professional, but put yourself in his shoes for a day. How many people come in there and the crap that they got to go through and all of that, it could go both ways. But yeah, if you're burned out, leave. That's what I always say. If you're done, just go find another job.
Yeah, no, you're valid in that opinion. It does make sense now that I think about it, because I did find a lot of investigations, so they probably are, inundated. But I think they're trying to shift the perception of the hotel now to be a little less on the paranormal side. Maybe because of all of that goes along with having that kind of opinion.
Yep.
But
I can see that, because like I said, look, especially Virginia City, how many paranormal investigation groups came out there as soon as everything exploded on YouTube.
right.
It just went wild. All of them: Silver Queen, Washoe Club, Gold Hill, Mackey Mansion, all of them. They are just being flooded. Could you imagine having to do a tour 5 times a day, and you got to go through all the rooms and say all the same stories?
Yeah, that would be
Woo.
No, it makes sense. I get it.
But anything else that you came up with, Amanda? Can you?
No, just really creepy. What?
I was going to ask, so can you stay there as a hotel?
So from what I can find, you can stay there. They have like more of a food stuff too. Like they have a working restaurant in the building where you can eat there without having to stay at the hotel, from what I understand. But it's still open and operating to this day. It's just now owned by Comstock Mining Company, and they pay people like that staff and run the place. But most places,
okay.
a lot of people get married there, weirdly enough.
Oh, okay. Oh, so they use it for that? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they have event venues, and they'll have events and stuff. There was a few people that posted about their wedding. But again, you have to go with the understanding that, your presence may not necessarily be welcomed, and you're going to deal with electrical issues, and you're going to feel, like people are touching you. That's part of staying in a haunted hotel. So
very good point.
Bad review.
Yep.
Very well paranormal.
Very good point, Amanda. Because that's what I don't understand, is when I'll watch some of those videos, and then how they usually have a book that people write their experiences and such, and they'll say, oh my God, I was so scared, and we ended up checking out, and it's like, well, what do you expect at a haunted hotel? Right. That's why you stayed there. You got to stay there all night, get the full experience.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's, if you can't handle it, that's fine. But realize that before waste somebody's time.
Exactly. Now, listeners, first of all, does anyone have any questions? If so, go ahead and type in chat. Second of all, so next Tuesday will be my subject, which is the infamous Washoe Club. And I think we've all heard of that. If you know Virginia City, then you definitely know the scary and infamous Washoe. And I definitely know in my research, there's a lot of deaths that have gone there. There's just a lot of deaths in a mining town, just like Amanda said. And Vicky said too. You're going to have that in a mining town. And then the week after that, which would again be the following Tuesday, then Courtney from Haunt's podcast will have her subject, which is the Mackey Mansion. And then the following Tuesday of that, we collabed 2 and 2. So it's Vicky and Amanda that are doing 2 hotels, or doing a hotel, and then me and Courtney are collabing on a hotel, still in the same live show together. But I believe Courtney and I are doing the Clown Hotel, and you guys are doing the Mitzvah. So definitely, remember to get together on that, and, come up with, how you're going to present that, Amanda and Vicky. But yeah, I think that this series is an awesome series. I love everything about Virginia City. Has anybody been to Virginia City before?
Nope, not me.
Oh, wait a minute. I got a question from Jimmy. Amanda, what's the most interesting thing investigators have found?
So Honestly, there was a lot of really compelling EVPs, a lot of really compelling photos of orbs. But what struck me the most was there was one team, I think they were called Twin Paranormal, and they came out with like an old bottle of like whiskey or something. And they use that almost as like a, what is it called when you encourage them to come through with something that you know is really
Trigger object.
Yes, thank you. So they set that up with a recorder and they left and they got like audio footage. It sounded a lot to me like, you know, those old pickaxes and hitting rock, like what that would sound like. Sounded an awful lot like that. So I thought that was really cool that nobody else was able to capture anything like that, but they brought a trigger object and it did give them something, you know, greater. But just a lot of like voices and a lot of guys getting freaked out because they were getting touched in like more flirty kind of ways, which was kind of, you know, it was hard to be scared when guys are being felt up, but
I'm sure they liked it. Come on. Most of them are probably like Zach Bagans. Zach Bagans has like a fantasy with being with a ghost. He always says it too. He drives me crazy. Oh, we have another question, and I'll answer this one. This one is from Cam Paranormal. Hi, Cam. Thank you so much for joining and listening. I do appreciate it. So it says, she asks, do you believe in spirits mimicking while investigating? My personal opinion, since I have done paranormal research for almost 20 years, yes, spirits can mimic. And no, not just demonic spirits, any spirit can mimic, because let's be honest, they're a ghost. They're wondering what you're doing there. Sometimes they can be a little sarcastic, especially if you knock, they're going to knock back. That's a form of mimicking. Sometimes you will say something and you'll get like a sarcastic remark back on like the spirit talker or Ovulus or, through the spirit box or the radio frequency device. So yeah, definitely a spirit can mimic. And like I said, Cam, don't think that it's just demonic. My channel here, I understand that there are demonic spirits and negative spirits, but not every place has a demonic spirit. Every place just might have someone that might have been a grumpy man in life. He's grumpy in the afterlife. Wouldn't you be grumpy if you were taken at an age that you didn't want to be taken at? So, definitely I try to spread the word about, there's all types of spirits, but, the whole, I'm not going to name names on here, of course, that's disrespectful, but there's a few YouTube channels where it just seems like every episode that I'm seeing their new thumbnail come up, it's all demonic. But Amanda, what do you think about that? What's your opinion on spirits mimicking while investigating?
I agree with you 100%. I think that, the most common form of mimicry is when people knock and they knock back in almost the exact same, like rhythm. But anything really, saying hello and hearing hello back, even some people that experience, I'm blanking on the name of it again. Maybe is it residual sound where like a sound is like repeating from something tragic, that can almost be a form of mimicry. So I do agree with you, and to tack on with what you said, because you said it perfectly, but I also really want to push, to people that are going out and doing these investigations, regardless of what you're looking for. I mean, I guess if you're looking for something satanic, it's on a different level, but if you're just going out there and you have a chance of interacting with spirits, like, stay respectful. These are still people, and it's really awful to see some of these people really trigger, trying to get something that they can record and use for views. So just be respectful that you're in someone's potential home, or that someone may have potentially died there, and, maintain that kind of respect throughout your investigation, and don't piss them off, I guess.
I totally agree. The one thing that bothers me is when, and we're talking in Virginia City, because like I said, many people visit Mackey Mansion, the Clown Hotel, all of that. And I'm not saying that there's not negative spirits there. But what I'm saying is these people used to live a life. What if we die, would we want someone referring to us on their YouTube channel? Okay, like say I died and I was at Mackey Mansion. Say I'm Mrs. Mackey. Okay, would you want to be referred as a demonic spirit? They didn't live their life like that. You know nothing about them, but yet it's all about, hey, 50,000 likes and we'll come back here and stay the night.
Exactly.
Or, it's just, and then like I said, there's one in particular YouTuber. It's not a group. I'll say that it's a guy, and he has a friend sometimes with him, but constantly it's the demon house. Next place, like a week later, the next episode, a demon house. The next episode, a demon house, a demon house. And it's like, I finally just stopped watching them because I'm like, I damn well know that a demon is not in every freaking house.
Right.
Have you ever investigated anywhere, Amanda?
I have not any big time ones, but when I lived in Ohio, I joined a group very briefly, and we did a couple like cemetery things. We had a spirit box, like an old SB7 spirit box. We would set them on graves, and we would bring gifts. But we always made sure, to practice be respectful, be responsible, don't leave trash behind, stuff like that. But it's sad because we would go into places where it's obvious people had done investigations, and they would leave trash behind, and like. Just you could tell it was very disrespectful. They wouldn't put stuff back. But yeah, wow. I've done a couple. I haven't done anything on par with like what you've done in your cave because I'm a chicken. I could never enter the cave the way you have and get recordings like that. But if I'm with people, I'm usually, I can do okay. I like going to haunted places as long as I'm not alone.
Well, let me tell you just why we're on the subject of my cave, Amanda. Yeah. So how about a few weeks ago? So I have an air conditioner in my bedroom, right? So the back of the air conditioner that's outside, the outside part, faces the big entrance of the cave. Because I have like 2 or 3 entrances. So it's the big entrance. And I started smelling, and this was so weird. This is after I recorded the episode that's dropping tomorrow with Nick Valente. So I had just got done talking with Nick Valente about the dog man and all these type of creatures and Bigfoot and all that. I go to bed and I'm sitting there just wrapping up on my phone and everything. And all of a sudden I started smelling this. I'm talking the whole room smelled like piss.
What?
Piss, garbage, and like vinegar.
Oh my God.
I don't know. It was a really, really weird scent. But like if you know an air conditioner, what?
Do you think that was demonic?
No, I think, well, first of all, let me let you in on a little secret. Not even an hour from here is Black Mountain, which is one of the best dogman sightings known to date. There's a, what do you call that? The trail cam that a guy had caught it's moving, everything. It is scary as fuck. We'll just say that.
Am I wrong, or did you recently post something on your profile recently that you heard like a howl that you caught on a recorder?
Yeah, it's actually on my Instagram page, more down to the bottom when I first started the podcast. So. Yeah, because I what I did was I set an EVP recorder outside of the cave, the big entrance of the cave. We had just got it. It's an Olympus recorder, which I suggest anyone get if you're looking for an EVP recorder and you don't want to spend the $3,000 on the DR60, which is just insane amount of money for a recorder. But anyway, I left it out for about an hour and 15 minutes. And about an hour and 6 minutes in, a Bigfoot howl comes over. And I'm telling you, Amanda, when I was listening to that and I was going through the whole, because you first hear, like, if you've seen a picture of my cave, you know that if you're looking at the big entrance of the cave, it's in a mountain.
Yeah.
So when you look up, it goes up. It's steep all the way up and it has a forest up there. Well, you hear first before this howl, you hear also something above the cave in the woods stomping on branches, not twigs, like branches, and like walking through it. Now, that's not the thing that howled, because the howl sounded like it was about a mile and a half away, because it echoed per se. And there are a lot of, if you look up on the app, I think it's like a Bigfoot app where it marks sightings. I live in Eastern Tennessee, which is considered the paranormal bubble, which we have a lot of Sasquatch sightings,
Oh my
encounters as well, and Dogman encounters and sightings. Let me also remind you, right over my state line, about 2 hours away, is the land between the lakes, where the Dogman actually murdered a family.
Oh my goodness.
Are you like right on the Appalachian Mountains, or at least
Yes.
close by?
Yes.
I
Yes,
mean,
I'm in the mountains that you see outside my yard. Those
yeah.
are the Appalachian Mountains. I live in the
Oh,
Appalachian
that's
Mountains.
amazing.
So, of course, you know, like the little fairy thing that I caught on camera, that's on my
Yes.
Instagram post. But yeah, so anyway, with the howl, we had done that only because about a week before that, something pounded on the front of our cave. Like, I'm talking, it wasn't human, because a human man, even as strong as a weightlifter or bodybuilder is, if you would hit the outside wood, because our cabin is wood, you know, a human would sound like a dull thud. This vibrated my bathroom decor in my bathroom.
Whoa.
That's terrifying.
And
yeah,
it did
that
it.
is scary.
Yeah, it did it not only once, but then when we ran out, opened the sliding glass door and looked on the front porch, which, mind you, the front porch is the length of my entire front of the house. You cannot get on my front porch without either A, going up the first 3 steps where there's a motion camera there that will record you, or B, when you get on the porch, go all the way down to the end. You have to jump off. There's the entrance to the cave. So something either had to crawl up on there and pound where it pounded at, or it didn't show up and set the motion camera off, which then what would that be? It'd be, I mean, it wasn't a human, because you'd able to be to see that. But again, a human would make a large dull thud when it pounded. But yeah, I caught the Bigfoot howl, and that's when everything started. I mean, I caught tree knocks so far, and that's why I wanted to talk to Nick Valente, because I really wanted to get down to the nitty gritty of, is the Dogman really real? Do I have to be scared out here? And his answer was yes. The Dogman is real. Scientific fact, the Dogman is real. Actually, one of his secretaries, one of his administrators that works for him, and she's right here in Kentucky, right by me, came up right to her front window in her kitchen, scared her and her daughter so much they grabbed their shotgun. So I'm in an area where Sasquatch, Bigfoot, I talked to a remote viewer that seems to think that there's an underground base under my house, because I'm always feeling like there's a train under my house, and my bedroom will shake like maybe once a week. We are always getting Apache and Black Hawk helicopters coming over our house, sometimes one. And if it's a training mission, it's not going to be just one.
Right.
If it's like military. So yeah, it's very scary out here, to say the least.
For you.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the Dogman, and I've never ever heard of the Dogman until kind of recently, that it's kind of being advertised a lot on Instagram. But can you tell me exactly what is the Dogman, and why is he scary? And comparing him to Bigfoot, is he worse than Bigfoot, or is Bigfoot still kind of like the top dog between them two?
Really good questions, actually, Vicky. So number one, the Dogman is a cryptid creature that is half man, half canine. It's kind of like has a dark black wolf-like, human-like face. It's bipedal. It does not go on all fours. And this is coming from Nick Valente, who is the founder of the International Dogman Project, which one moment, plug everybody tomorrow night, 7 p.m., I'm dropping my conversation with Nick Valente, and we go over the dog man. And coming straight from his mouth, Vicky, he actually had an encounter. There's a difference between a sighting and encounter. A sighting is just something that like runs across the road, you see it, it's gone. An encounter is you're standing face to face with it. He actually encountered the dog man. He remembers the date, September 13th, 2013. That's the date. I even remembered it because I was so entranced in the conversation that I really wanted to know, is the dog man real? Yes, it is. Is it worse than Bigfoot in the area of creature-ish? Yes, because Bigfoot, there are certain types of Bigfoot. And with that, there's, you know how there's certain types of humans. You get mean humans, you get nice people, you get sarcastic people. It's the same thing as Bigfoot. Not only are there different types of Bigfoot, like the Yeti, the Sasquatch, the Feral Man, the Hairy Man, etc. You have the different where some are aggressive, some even have helped people. For example, Nick actually met, I'm not trying to blow my episode tomorrow night, but Nick actually met a family where they were all out in the woods one day, and their 4-year-old, a little girl in their family, got lost and she was missing. 4 weeks later, she was brought back to the same exact place that she disappeared from. She was healthy.
That is crazy.
She was not, she looked like she was fed, and all she would say is, "Bear fed me. Bear fed me."
Oh,
Bear
man.
fed you?
Okay, yeah. So now you know a bear is not going to feed a human. So then what else is left? A Bigfoot. So, but a dog man is creature-ish. It is not night. It hunts for sport. It hunts to eat and kill. For example, the LBL, there was a, you can look it up. In the 80s, there was a family, a mother, father, a little boy, and a little girl that were all killed. The little boy was actually ripped to shreds on the ground. The little girl was put up 15 feet in a tree, arm missing, ripped to shreds. Father had his arm ripped off as well, and the mother was inside the camper and she was actually obliterated. I mean, she was just, and was it the dog man? Yes, it was the dog man. I mean, because Nick Valente actually spoke with a, I think it was like a family member or a friend. I can't remember specifically at the moment, but of one of the cops that they got off their shift at 5:30 in the morning after they had attended to that horrible murderous crime scene. And they were in complete shock of what they seen.
I mean, anyone would be after seeing something like that. I mean, wouldn't you be shitting in your pants? I mean, face
oh my
to
God,
face.
I'm shitting in my pants living out here.
Have you guys seen the TikTok of the guy? It's pretty compelling. So there's a guy, and he's posted on TikTok. He's videotaping walking through his house, and he comes around the corner in his kitchen, and you can see its head poking in through the window. And people were like, "No, that's just a dog." Well, the next day he posted a daytime video, and he went outside and showed you the height that thing would have been to have to put its head through the window. It creeped me out. It creeped me out real bad.
I think I saw that.
Familiar.
Yeah. And like the video is pretty compelling that you can clearly see something with like a dog head almost, but it's not. But like its head is through the window looking at him as he's filming. And then to see the height that window was, like there's no creature. I don't know. Are dogmen really tall, do you know?
They are about 6.5, 7 feet tall is the
That
one
would
that
match.
Nick had seen. So, and very fast. Now, a lot of people, like I asked Nick, where do these things come from? They've always been here. You will learn in tomorrow's episode that, you know, you have to think it like this. Scientific fact, there are 11 different dimensions. Nick told me, Farrah, when you go outside in your property next time, I want you to think about something, not to scare you, but I want you to think as you're looking around all your woods and the Appalachian Mountains and how dark the woods are there, even in the daytime, that you do know something could be standing behind you right now and you wouldn't even know it.
I believe that so much because all my life, like, not to sound like I'm talking about spirits or anything here to take away from your thunder, but like, I've always had that theory that yes, someone is looking back at me, even though I cannot look back at them. But I have a question for you, Farrah. Like, the dog man, is he, you said he's a cryptid, right? But is he something that belongs to Native American lore?
Yes, he also is part of does he belong to it? I don't know if there's a link that he comes from that, but not only does the Native Americans, write about Hairy Man, which is Bigfoot, they have written about the Dog Man, and that's the one that they are very scared of. There aren't, and the funny thing is, not funny, but the interesting thing is, the Native Americans will talk to Nick about Bigfoot, but they will not talk to him about Dogman.
So kind of like that Wendigo, the time that we had talked about, I guess one of our first live sessions that like the Wendigo, the Native American the tribe that I looked up, that they can't say the name out loud because it was like an attraction or something of the sort.
The Skinwalker.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
It's almost like the Skinwalker. Now, the Skinwalker, they can't even say the word Skinwalker. Now, I don't know if the lore is so strong that they can't say the word Dogman. I just know the way Nick said it was that they refuse to talk to him about it. Refuse. The Hairy Man, they'll sit down all day long. Other than that, though, it's because the Dog Man is something that is very
like a manifestation kind of thing. Like they think if they say it out loud, it's kind of like calling him into their life.
Yeah, exactly. If they talk about it, it's calling him in. And being that this is not like a Bigfoot, there's only one. There's 7 different types of Dogman, just like there's different types of Bigfoot. Okay, but they're all aggressive.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, if it's coming from the wild, then yeah, like it's basic instinct is like about survival. It's gonna attack something that, just like us, we go ahead and shoot and kill some animal that we're not familiar with. You think it does the same to us?
Right. No, I totally agree, Vicky. I totally agree. I mean, plus we're in their territory, remember. Yeah. We moved into their territory, and I think a lot of people forget that. I think humans, the way we are, we're very selfish. We're very me. We think we're supposed to be here, that this planet was made for us, and no, it wasn't. So, it was, I mean, because we're not the best that the universe could possibly spit out. So there are many other creatures and cryptids and humanoids, and I think that once people start understanding that, maybe it might open their eyes, because it does bother me. Don't get me wrong, I used to be skeptic too, and I still have a skeptic mind when I hear about new things. But I also got to keep in the back of my mind that, ask yourself this question, even as you watch the news and all the craziness that's going on today, all the new fads and trends and lunacy, do you honestly think that we are the best and the only thing that the universe could spit out that's humanoid? No, because if we were, by God, the universe did a horrible job.
I say that all the time.
I mean, how can you not? There's just a lot of people have gone cream puffing insane. That's all I have to say. But as far as
we live in that world that everything needs to be watered down, because if not, like, all of a sudden someone's offended.
Right. I know. It's just, oh my God, you didn't tell me that I look nice today. I'm going to go shoot up a school. And it's like, what? I mean, come on. It's enough is enough. You're not going to be singled out and nobody has to tell you that you're this and that. I identify as a rich and wealthy millionaire. My name is Queen Participe, and I own 5 castles in Ireland. I expect you to call me that.
Yes, Queen.
Thank you, Jimmy. You're looking handsome yourself too. That little ghostly icon of yours. But yeah, and I'll be doing a story on the Dogman of the LBL and a couple other Dogman stories. But the LBL one is one that's going to be very hard to do because this was actually a real family that was involved. And I mean, like you guys all agree, it was a horrific, scene. No one should see that, and no one should have to go through that. Could you imagine what they went through in their last moments? That look what they're looking at, that's ripping them to shreds. I mean, I couldn't even imagine the terror that was going through their mind.
I have a question, or I kind of want to talk back a little bit on the Virginia City Chronicle. Do you
Go ahead.
think that city itself, or like that, do you think it's just pretty much like the ghosts that are there? They're just run by prostitutes. I mean, just 2 so far: the Silver Queen and the one Amanda did just tonight. Like, it sounds a little kind of like, well, the hauntings coming from the prostitutes, or the ladies of the nights who are, they're causing a scene because they still want to, even in their own afterlife, they still want to be with men rather than women, and that's the reason why they attack women more than they do the males, because like in their world, however they're living in the spirit world, they still think they're working.
2 questions. I mean, 2 answers to that. One, I think that any ghost town or small town like that is going to have your resident ghost, but there are ley lines under Virginia City, and the minerals also have an energy to them that a lot of people believe that there is maybe a portal or 2 or a few through Virginia City where other spirits walk through that portal. So it's not only infested by the resident ghosts there. And yes, there most likely is some of the prostitutes that, I mean, think about it. Back then, to be an independent woman and do that, granted, I'm sure they all had a pimp or someone to report to, but they were making money. They weren't married. They were strong, independent women back there. They're going to still have that type of control because they did that for those miners. Miners like that when they worked 16, 20 hours a day and would go to Silver Queen or Gold Hell or whatever it was and, grab a girl because they manhandled them. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. They did. They showed them a good time. They weren't just laying there. So you have that woman that's in control. So when you get young guys with purple hair like Twin Paranormal that go in there, they probably are messing with them a little bit, like pulling the hair, like, what the hell is this? You don't look like. And here's a good, question, or here's a good thing for you to think about, Vicky. Do you ever wonder, since there are 11 different dimensions, are we really here? I wonder if they're really here and we're the ghost. I mean, did you ever think about that? What kind of dimension we really are?
Because there was a movie I saw a long time ago. I forgot what it's called. It's with Nicole Kidman, where they show it's her being the mom with 2 kids.
Oh, The Others.
Yes, that
great movie.
In their world, they think they're alive somehow, but then there's that plot twist at the end that that they're the ghosts. They're the ones that's not living, and the one haunting the house is them, right? Mm-hmm. And what if that's a possibility? Because I did tell that to Kevin in the interview he had with me, that we have heaven, we have hell, and I believe, my firm belief is that here, Earth, this is purgatory. That I think that's the reason why we see a bunch of like spirits and ghosts and demons and goblins and God knows what else you want to name in there, because we're living in this plane of existence that we are literally not alone, that we have the physical plane and we have the spiritual plane merging together. And that's like the reason why on October 31st, that's the only time of the entire year the veil lifts and we have all these spirits and other monsters coming out, because I don't even know why. Like, I'm still having to figure that part out. But like, my firm belief is that we are living the physical plane of purgatory. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree. I don't know 100% what it is, but being the fact, like I said, that scientific fact there are 11 dimensions, you have to wonder, who are we? Are they sitting there and they're in their time frame and they're doing their jobs and working and they're physical, but then they hear people in the background, but they can't see us going, can you touch this? Can you say something in here? With all the, you just never know.
Can I also add something of my own personal belief to the question?
Of course, Amanda.
Okay. So, to the question, Vicky, that you asked, really about like, I don't know, I don't think this is where the question was going, but I think like in general why that is such a hot pocket and why it's like so, has so many paranormal things going on. So I know that there's like an old running kind of hypothesis that brick can absorb energy and that high emotions, are more probable for that energy to kind of be residual. And so it makes me think if maybe these hot spots where sex workers would, run that, out of them, maybe that was just a really positive high energy, like a lot of emotion, obviously, during something like that. And
the
maybe
stone tape theory.
Yeah, and maybe that's why that area in particular is like kind of a hot spot for it. And those surrounding areas, because it is so rich with that emotional energy that has just been soaked up by this brick. And you can paint it, but it's the same brick that was standing back when, these buildings saw all of this traumatic death and, loss of economy. And so it's really, that's my personal theory too. I think that lends a strong hand.
I agree.
I understand that, actually. Yeah, no, it's totally understandable, believable. I'm just wondering, what kind of brick are you talking about? Because I did learn a few years ago that witches, they use red brick in terms of like protection, or they do something with red brick.
Oh.
You know what I mean? What did they use it for? I completely forgot the whole definition, but it's somewhere around that witches, whether good or bad, they use red brick in particular to do some sort of like a protection barrier or something like that. And if these spirits are surrounded by brick, that what you're talking about, then is it the red brick that I'm thinking of that kind of keeps them entrapped in one place?
I've seen that, Vicky, in a documentary. I don't know either what exactly it is, but yes, witches would use a form of a stone or brick. They would more or less cast their spell on that, and then it was like a protection barrier. They would use it to like back in the day, put a part in like an old house or something and keep things in it and locked up, and then build a wall to protect it, that way that energy, that whatever is in there, can stay in there.
I mean, remember, this is also within the timeline where the spiritual era was kind of running at its most high, where Mary Winchester, she kind of got her reading from like this one lady who, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know why I can't put it into words, but something about like in the ending of the 1800s to the early 20th century, there was that spiritual era that like a lot of people were going to these mediums and witches and
the spiritualism movement.
There you go. That's the word.
And here's the thing with that, because I listened to Courtney's her Houdini episodes the other day, and she even touched on it, that back when it started, the spiritualism movement, There was a lot of mediums that said they were mediums, and what they would do is they would like turn off the lights and everything, and then they would take a puff of cigar and then hold it. She didn't say that in her thing, but she was talking about how you would have to, kind of prance around to see if they were really a medium or not. But from what I've researched before, like I said, they would turn off the lights, take a puff of cigar, hold it in, and then when the medium, would start feeling something, she'd slowly let the smoke out, and then a photographer would take a picture of the dark, her being in the dark still, but the flash from the bulb would catch the quote ectoplasm. And it wasn't. I mean, sometimes they would even put fluff holding it in the air. I mean, it was just crazy what they would do.
So
I have heard like the fake stories behind those experiences as well.
Yeah, wow. I always saw photos of ectoplasm, but that makes sense that they could just be faked that easily.
Yeah, they were definitely. Drew is in here. Drew and Z Baby from Cryptid Warfare Podcast. Say hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, guys. And yeah, the trigger objects for the Virginia City. I'll tell you a little story when I do mine next Tuesday, the Washoe Club. But, people have used like guns. They've used, like money from back in the day, like even dollar bills to kind of like trigger a prostitute to come forth. I mean, goodness, I would have given them at least more than $1. But
at that time, that was a lot of money. That's for sure.
I know, but I want to like give them like 10 or $20, make them feel like, oh my God, wow.
You have the whole town running after you.
I know my house would be more infested, but yeah. And, I'm actually, here at my place, like I said, with living where I'm at, I've just become more open to so many other things. And I do believe that ghosts are real. I do believe that, with all the different dimensions right there, Amanda, where you're sitting, Vicky, where you're sitting, our listeners, where they're sitting, you could have someone standing behind you right now and not even know it. You don't know who's watching you, because 11 different dimensions aren't just 50 miles away from you. They're everywhere because they're part of this world. So, when I go outside, I'm always thinking, oh my God, is there like Bigfoot standing behind me, or like the dog man or something?
I'm more interested into your little dog man dash Bigfoot experience. Like, I wanna hear more about that soon.
Well, you guys have to go to first go on my Instagram and scroll down to the bottom, down like where the first like 10 posts that I have, and you'll see there's it's like a gray background with my old logo, like the one I first came out with, but it's the gray one, and it has 2 Bigfoot feet, and it's one that's the how. I isolated it and put it in there, and then you'll see another one where it says tree knocks. I've caught in black shadows out here darting across my front lawn. I've done like the little fairy things. But yeah, I'm definitely going to have another podcast where I'm updating people on everything. And so we're going to do that soon.
Awesome.
But other than that, does anyone else have any questions, thoughts, concerns? I hope you guys all liked this evening's episode. But yes, remember next Tuesday, which I believe is the 6th at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, episode 3, which is my subject again, the Washoe Club. And then the Tuesday after that, which is the 13th, is Courtney from Hauntscast. She will be doing her subject, which is Mackey Mansion. And then the following Tuesday, like I had said before, we're going to be going over the Mitzvah Hotel and the Clown Hotel. So make sure that you stay tuned. I will certainly, as well as Amanda and Courtney and Vicky, we will all post the link right before, like 15 minutes before or so, to come into the live to interact with us. Don't forget tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, for my conversation with Nick Valente. Amanda just dropped an episode out, believe today. Amanda, do you want to give everybody a little, go to your area to see your newest episode or hear your newest episode?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's definitely a wild one. You can download it really anywhere you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts. But if you can't, you can go to onenothing.buzzsprout.com, and that's my host site. So all of my podcasts are available for download there.
Right. And Vicky, did you have one come out recently too?
Yes, I did. Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Go ahead and give yours a plug.
Yeah. So my episode that I just recently posted is called The Season of the Dead. It's more or less in ties to the All Hallow Tide, which is something not everyone is familiar with, not even me. I kind of found that within my time discovering some things, and I decided to kind of make like a whole episode about how there's cultures around the world that they kind of have like a death celebration on certain days out of the entire year, or actually more like in the similar timeline throughout the entire year. And so it's just more like a religious perspective on this 3-day observance, and how it started sometime in medieval times, early medieval times, until some last century. If you're interested, please go to my please go to Spotify and check out at Mrs. Spooky Obsessed podcast. It's the most recent one you'll see there under The Season of the Dead.
I have to check that out. That
Definitely. And I'll check yours out too, Amanda. I did Courtney's recent one, so now got to move on to the other ones, give everyone some love. Now, for listeners, that is your first time here at the Conversation Cabin podcast, I invite you to follow me on Spotify, Apple, Google, Audible, Amazon, wherever you listen. I actually drop episodes twice a week. So come and get your dose of strange twice a week at the Conversation Cabin podcast. And I do things in my episodes like select special music, input sound effects, and I also do character work. So I kind of bring you in to feel and be a part of the action, make you feel like you're back in, 1800s New Orleans or 1800s London when I did the Whitechapel murders with Jack Ripper and The Lost. So again, this week I'll be dropping tomorrow, which is the Nick Valente episode. This Saturday, I believe I'm dropping my episode with Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress. So make sure you turn in. And I have a lot of episodes coming up. For instance, let's see, real quick. I have the Cornish Pixies and the Knockers of Cornwall for cryptids. I have the Beast of Bluegrass, the Dogman of LBL, of course. I have Joan of Arc, Maid of Orleans story coming to you. I have the tragic murder of Lemuel Wallace that was actually murdered by a priest, if you can believe it. And I have the Doomsday murders of Tally Ryan and JJ Vallow, which is, of course, the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. They had murdered her 2 children. And also, they believe that Chad Daybell murdered his ex-wife as well. And I have a lot more coming. So if you like everything strange, paranormal, cryptid, group accidents. Oh, I have like the Kennedy mine disaster coming where 47 miners were killed in Jackson, I believe, California. So again, tune into the conversation twice a week, follow so that way you can get the update, because I don't really have a set day because I never like putting out an episode if it's not done the way that I want it. So I don't have like certain days, but usually they come out the beginning of the week and close to the end of the week. But other than that, thank you all for listening to episode 2, the Gold Hill Hotel in the series of Virginia City Chronicles. I hope you enjoyed Amanda's wonderful research that she always does. So please take a listen to her and Vicky and Courtney's podcasts. And until next time, cabin crew and listeners, explore your strange.